Vietnamese to work with the Vietnamese children. And so they do individual counseling, they do a lot of group counseling, I think particularly with the women. It's like anywhere in the world. It is part of the healing process to learn that you're not the only one that has suffered such heinous abuse, and to feel that connection with others. So the counseling is provided on site and on a long-term basis as needed.
We've had a couple of the same question here regarding just sharing the gospel with them, and I would imagine that you mentioned earlier about them gaining your trust and you gaining their trust and all that. I would imagine that would be a big part of that, but do you find that at some point the staff is able to share the gospel with them, and is the response, what's the typical response? Just how does that work?
Definitely. In Cambodia, we share the gospel. We do, well, if you go on our website, you can see our identity statement, which, begins by saying we respect all faiths and beliefs and traditions. And, but we are all motivated by our own Christian faith, and we do share and witness to those that are open to receiving it. And so the way that looks on a daily basis at the women's shelter every morning begins with devotions. Most of the women, I believe, participate. The children get Bible study on a regular basis. They are prayed for daily. When I walk through the Aftercare Center, they have little bedrooms with must be about 8 bunks, and then they have what they call a mother that sleeps in the room with the girls, and every little bed often there's a Bible. The ethos, our Christian ethos is there. We have what we call a nurturing Christian commitment program that is sort of a coordinating body to make sure that this gets out and is not a haphazard approach. So in addition to those kind of everyday activities, we also do retreats, and we'll take the children to the beach or something, and it'll be a Bible retreat, a spiritual retreat. Same thing for the women and staff, for that matter.
Do you think that many of them have heard of Jesus Christ? Do you think?
Probably not.
Most of them
It's very much a minority religion in Cambodia. I think it's, 2-3%, something like that.
Small.
So that's one of the challenges on reintegration is to find a church to connect them with. And what we do to aid that process is try to bring the local church into Hagar as much as possible, so it isn't seen as a Hagar thing. So they see that this is, and so the girls go to church with their mothers on Sunday. We have about 250 staff in Cambodia. They're not all Christian because of that 2% number, but those on the front lines are. We hire Christian counselors and social workers and so forth.
All right. We have several student members with No Silence who wanted to ask if they were wanting to get involved in Aftercare. I've talked to ones who want to get involved in Aftercare as well as ones who want to go kick in the doors, and they wanted to know how they do that. Should they follow their passions and their whatever their gifts are already and try and integrate that, or are there specific degrees and stuff that would help them be able to accomplish that quicker?
Well, first I'll answer that kind of from the reality of Hagar right now and what I see there. And I get a lot of inquiries from people who want to be counselors and social workers, go and serve. But as I've just explained, our frontline staff are all nationals. To have that cultural continuity and the language. So if your dream is to be that frontline counselor, it's not going to happen with Hagar, I can tell you that. Perhaps there are ministries that have a different approach. We do have the management staff that, like in Cambodia still, if you know anything about the history, you know about the Khmer Rouge regime in the 1970s, the genocide. Over 2 million people killed, everybody who had any post-secondary education, anybody who was a teacher, anyone who was a doctor, anyone who wore eyeglasses, wiped out.
Yep.
So they still are not yet there as far as training a high caliber professional staff to replace that whole generation that was lost. So one day, hopefully, our managements all the way to the top will be Cambodian nationals,
Wow.
but they're not. That's not possible now, right? So with the counseling, what we look for as we move into new countries, we're looking for people that really have some experience under their belt. It's not an entry-level position to be involved at that level. Certainly getting any sorts of experience that they possibly can. If
In
the
missions
passion,
work,
yeah, missions work, if the passion is counseling, follow your passion.
Right.
Right.
And it will certainly take you somewhere where you're meant to be.
Right.
With Hagar, though, you mentioned the accounting,
Well, like I had one student in particular, well, two in mind. One of them is in music, and she's wanting to know how she can kind of integrate those two things. She's going to go do a residency somewhere shortly, and she'd like to maybe do aftercare and teach music to girls. Whether it was in the United States or overseas, I'm not sure what she was thinking of. And then there was another student that we have who is in dance, among other things. And so, but yeah, I just threw some things
Okay.
out there, accounting, writing,
Uh-huh.
art, whatever.
Well, two things that come to mind. One, we do have an extracurricular and an arts program, which we think is very, very important for the children.
Oh, yeah.
And, you ask about like security issues. Well, part of the security issue is just raising your confidence and your self-esteem, right, and believing in yourself. And that can come through the arts. We have a fabulous arts director. We have a video out on YouTube that shows this particular program and interviews him, and it's just very cool what goes on. And they learn Cambodian classical dance, they learn Taekwondo, they have the opportunity to sing. So arts, we do occasionally have places where we have young Americans come over who have these particular skills, who can donate, at least 6 months of time. We've had music therapy students that have helped on a limited basis. If that's their passion, I'm sure they'll find a way.
Right.
But the other piece, what has really become interesting to me, because I guess in my career I was never really aware of how one truly can serve overseas and in a ministry with those kinds of technical skills. I mean, we need people who can do marketing. We need people who are accountants. With our social enterprise approach, we just got a fellow from California to help lead our catering business. And we find those positions rather difficult to fill because everybody who wants to go overseas and serve, thinks counseling and
Right.
those kind of traditional avenues. Yet there are many other ways to serve. Raising funds is service.
Yeah.
So there's many ways, I believe, to plug in what those technical vocational skills are and
Absolutely.
what your passion is as far as making a difference.
I'm really glad you said that, because it seems like the past thinking and thought process in people is that in order to really make a difference or to do ministry, you're going to go into ministry. Yeah, well,
Yeah, that too.
or you're going to go to seminary and you're going to be a preacher or a pastor or a youth pastor. Or you're going to go be a missionary and live in the jungle and do that whole thing. You're right. So that's really cool to hear you say that, because I think that's God is really going to be calling people into places like that where they can use gifts that He's given them and talents they've acquired through life, through college, whatever it may be, and use them in a place like that.
Yep.
So that's great.
We have an engineer from, would not like this if he were listening. He's either from Germany or Switzerland. I know he speaks German, but I'm not sure if it's Swiss German or German.